Hello and welcome to randomly reviewing Antichamber. Antichamber is a game made by Alexander Bruce and published by Denroth. Antichamber is a game made to mess with your mind with some rather unusual puzzles, which is meant to take preconceptions and tropes from previous first-person games you might have played and use them against you to create the perception of illogical or unsolvable puzzles. The first thing you'll notice in the game is, however, not the game, but the rather unusual Antichamber, which is the title screen, which mainly consists of a series of trophies which you have gathered throughout the game. When you solve a puzzle, you get a trophy. And we have the options menu, and we have a map which we'll get back to later. The options menu, I would have liked to have seen some more in-depth sound options. A simple disable and enable for the complete sound system is not really acceptable. I would also have liked to have seen some rebindable keys. Now, as I said, the game mainly consists around illogical or seemingly insolvable puzzles, and a large part of how it does this is through the narrow field of view of the first-person perspective. So what I mean by that is that it changes the area around you where you cannot see. So you might walk down a corridor and turn around, and it might have deleted some of the corridor or replaced it with a new room, or might have blocked you off. There's a wide variety of things which might happen to you. Now, a thing which you are going to be introduced to fairly early in the game, and is I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it a block gun, which is a device which you can use to pick up colored blocks and place them wherever you want. Now, these blocks can be used to solve a long variety of puzzles. So an example is that you can use it to block a door from closing down, or you can use it to block a laser which makes a door open. You can also use them to climb on to reach places you couldn't do before, and so on and so forth. The game has a very strong thing. You're never going to get stuck. Even though you have these complicated puzzles, you will never really get stuck. Because even if you get stuck, all you have to do is press escape. You get back to the Antichamber, which is the options menu, the title screen, and the map. And here we have the map which I talked about before, where you can choose to go to anywhere you have been before. So if you get stuck one place, you may go to another place and try to solve the puzzle there, or go back a few steps and try to solve that puzzle a bit differently. If you get into an unsolvable case, maybe you accidentally close doors on both sides of you, you can just press escape, go back, and try again. Now, a thing that really helps the player is that it has a very simplistic and somewhat artsy style to it. Now, the way this helps the player is that when you are a new player to Antichamber and you have played first-person games before, you need to unlearn a lot of tropes and preconceptions about first-person games. And having a very simple style makes sure that the player is not going to think they overlooked something, or maybe missed a hidden lever in the wall, which you might get if Antichamber had a very complex textures or models or whatever. This also helps the player focus. They're not going to go back and look through crates or whatever. They're going to focus on the task at hand, and if they can't solve it directly, they're going to go back to a new place and try another thing, instead of getting stuck and trying to look for this non-existent hidden lever or button or whatever. Now, there has been some discussion, or I have heard some discussion, about whether this is a game or not. To figure out whether this is a game or not, we need to define what a game is, which can be very hard, and I'm not going to try to make a vigorous definition of a game, but some things which almost all games need to have is a failure state and or a victory condition. Now, this game does not have a defined failure state, but does have an implicit or implied failure state. This is because we have a time in the game starting off with 1.5 hours. Now, I'm just going to go into some spoilers, minor spoilers, but spoilers nonetheless. When the timer runs out, it's just going to show the following picture, and the game is going to go on. Now, this is therefore not a failure state, but still is something that makes you want to finish the game before the timer runs out. Kinda wants you to imagine it as a failure state, even though it clearly isn't. The game, on the other hand, does have some sort of a victory condition, or at very least, it does have an ending. Now, an ending is not equal or the same as a victory condition, but for this purpose, we can say that it is. When something isn't a game, we can call it a virtual art installation, and some people see the following scene as a very literal interpretation of this. Now, in this scene or area, you clearly have a virtual art installation with several virtual art pieces. In fact, they are multi-dimensional art pieces, but some people see this as being a reflection of the entire game, being a virtual art installation with virtual art pieces. There are one other, maybe stronger argument for why this is correct. This is because throughout the game there are black posters, which on them have some sort of drawing, and when you click on them, they're going to give you a hint of what the puzzle is about, or a hint to how to solve the puzzle, but they are not placed before the puzzle, but placed after the puzzle. Now, from a game mechanical perspective, this doesn't make a lot of sense, because you would want the poster to help the player solve the puzzle. Now, if we look at this as a virtual art installation, we get a completely different perspective on it, because instead of the poster trying to help the player solve the puzzle, it is more trying to help the player understand the puzzle as an art piece and what that art piece was trying to tell the player. Now, this doesn't come without a counter argument, which is that each of those black posters is a trophy, a reward for solving the puzzle. And you can see that when you go into the Antichamber, the options menu and stuff, where you get all of the posters you have collected as trophies on the title screen. Now, which of these interpretation is true and which is false, I don't know. Does one exclude the other? I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to put the idea out there. Now, a thing that is very often overlooked in some video game reviews is the sound, or more importantly, the ambience/music, where it is particularly important in this title. And this is because the ambience soundtrack follows the game's pace and kind of tells you when you're getting closer to the end. In the start, we have some very slow, very smooth out ambience, and as we get closer to the end, we're going to get some more full sound landscapes. The music and sound for the game is very, very good and is created by a Dutch man called Siddhartha Barnhorn. I'm probably pronouncing that falsely, and I'm sorry for that. It is a very, very good part of the game, and it really brings the game to life. And playing the game without the sound on really diminishes the experience, and that might be because we have the very simple art style, and that means that right in this particular title, we need the sound to kind of give the complexity which textures and complex models normally would give. So let's try to wrap up on this. Would I recommend the game, and what are my conclusions? My conclusions are that this is a very good game. Would I recommend it? Well, this is a game you're either going to hate or you're going to love. Not really a middle ground. And when you've watched this video, you'll know whether you love it or hate it. If you love it, I would suggest that you go out and buy it. If you don't, obviously, don't buy it. Now, the time it takes to complete this game is very variable. Now, some claim they have finished the game in under 30 minutes, and more people claim it takes around 7 hours or 10 hours even to complete the game. Now, I know those making a speedrun for it do it in around 20 minutes, but they don't see the whole of the game and just the linear path from start to end. And there is a lot of sidetracking and going on to one side and seeing what's there. The game is right now around 19 euros on Steam, which might be a bit expensive, I don't know. It is a lot of hours for the price, but depending on the player, it might not be worth it. If it's on sale, on the other hand, I would without a doubt recommend you go ahead and try it. And if you think that this is a game for you, I would say that the 19 or 20 euros is well worth it. This has been Randomly Reviewing Antichamber, and if you would like to see more of the Randomly Reviewing series, please press the like button and subscribe.